25 before the hour. I have here in my hand the latest Moment with Bob, which, if I hear ukulele music, I may hark. There it is. Another Moment with Bob brought to you by your friends at Offshore Drilling. This one is entitled Reasonable Men, and it's appropriate to the events that occurred today, or at least the decisions that were released today, while not directly addressing them. Hey, Mike, I'm so goddamn sick seeing and having to hear what reasonable men are saying I could puke. For a couple of weeks now, the people who should have been tried and imprisoned for war crimes are back retelling their history-distorting lies to all the vacuous dolts who keep putting these beasts in front of television cameras. I don't know how long it takes to train oneself to sound like a reasonable man, but once mastered, it's possible to carve out a lucrative career in the service of evil. I truly hate these bastards. They've always been around derailing and diffusing anyone who wants to do the right thing. A long time ago, the United States invaded Vietnam. By the time America pulled out of that unholy war, millions of Vietnamese had been murdered and countless numbers maimed. There are two big black walls in Washington, D.C. with the names of over 58,000 American vets killed in the war etched upon them. All that death and misery because reasonable men started the war and refused to end it until every last dime could be minted from the blood of those consumed by it. The politicians and pundits held sway for years until that particular money-making machine became unfashionable. It could still crank out the big bucks, but it was becoming too unseemly to keep the operation going. Smarmy rat bastards like William F. Buckley supported the war effort in dulcet tones until he or his handlers were finished filling their pockets. They could only milk the domino theory communist threat in Southeast Asia for so long until the body bags coming back home dampened the enthusiasm for killing gooks who had the temerity to fight back. Anyone who read the Pentagon Papers understood the Vietnam War was sold on lies, prolonged with more lies, until the last lie, peace with honor, was uttered by Richard Nixon. Once it was understood that the entire war was an abomination, the only rational, humane response was to end it. Stop the killing. How complicated was that? Stop the killing. But then the reasonable men would ooze in front of television cameras or write a column explaining in a calm, matter-of-fact manner all the reasons why and how that wasn't possible. And of course the killing went on and on and on and on. When college campuses exploded in anti-war protests, the most insidious of reasonable men appeared. They told the most outrageous lies. They told us they agreed with us. They told us they were on our side. They told us that if we really wanted to end the war, we must work within the system. Right. Working within the system that spawned the war could end the war. A sentence like that collapses in the design stage, but that didn't keep the reasonable men from spouting it. No matter how heartfelt and thoughtful the reasonable men's position seemed to be, what they were really saying was, "We're not done killing yet." Terrified Americans watching burning inner cities and rioting college campuses sided with the reasonable men. They needed to ignore the reason behind the unrest because they just wanted the chaos to stop. Reasonable men were always ready to help put America back to sleep, clutching their status quo teddy bears. Yeah, I've had a belly full of reasonable men over the last 45 years. Their purpose is to make sure we do nothing in the face of the rotten reality reasonable men have created for us. A few years ago, the gas bags who shill for the elite told us we had to use our money and our unborn grandchildren's money to bail out the banks that were too big to fail. Reasonable men infested the media to tell us the dire consequences of what would happen if we didn't consent to the largest transfer of wealth in human history to the richest human beings who walk the planet. Wouldn't it have been a better idea to bail out the folks who had their homes, jobs, and lives stripped from them by the predators that roamed in packs in the halls of mortgage companies, Wall Street, and Congress? Prop up the people, keep them in their homes, save their jobs, and prosecute and jail the criminals. Screw the goddamn banks. Bail out the people. We can't, said the reasonable men. We have to save the economy. The economy wouldn't have been saved, apparently, if millions of Americans weren't sacrificed in order to pay off Wall Street's gambling spree. The Icelandic government let banks fail, prosecuted the corrupt banksters, and forgave loans, easing the debt burdens of more than a quarter of their population. The result? Iceland has recovered faster than any nation hit by the meltdown of 2008. The agenda of the reasonable men wasn't to save the economy. It was to put up for sale and then have their handlers buy for pennies on the dollar the economic future of every man, woman, and child in America. Mission accomplished. A friend of mine is a half-assed lawyer. He gets $300 an hour to smooth the way for whatever it is his clients want to do. Years ago, I was trying to get him to give me money for the Prosecute George W. Bush book project. I think he was amused by our conversation. I said something about how Bush and Cheney had destroyed the country, and he suddenly took on a tone. It was the tone of a reasonable man. He dismissed my assertion by saying in a joshing, avuncular fashion that Bush and Cheney really hadn't destroyed the country. What a ridiculous thing to say. His tone sounded so calm and self-assured as he steadfastly ignored every god-awful thing the Bush-Cheney regime had done since the Twin Towers fell on September 11th. He had the tone down. It's a tone of voice that is so well measured and seemingly so well thought out that it can stop all argument. It sounds like the voice of reason when it's simply a well-trained voice that is used to sell a self-serving pile of crap. He sounded just like Dick Cheney when Cheney proclaimed the insurgency in Iraq was in its last throes, and when Rumsfeld said regarding Saddam's WMDs, "We know where they are. They're in the area around Tikrit in Baghdad." He was completely self-assured, self-confident, and completely wrong. Later, I called up my attorney friend when I knew he'd be drunk. We talked about old times for the umpteenth time, and then I got his credit card number so I had enough money for postage to put 2 tons of books in the mail. And now, the reasonable men are back lying about the recent history of Iraq for anyone who can't clearly remember what the hell happened there and here. I want to see and know so many more things between now and whenever my funeral will be. Somewhere on the list is to read in the papers that Henry Kissinger, Dick Cheney, and that miserable meat puppet of a man, George W. Bush, are dead. There's no justice. There's no accountability. All I've got is a Billy Crystal quote, to wit, "I worry I'll die when too many of the people I hate are still alive. Regards, Bob." Oh yeah, I'm a twit now. Please, anyone who cares about all things Bob can follow me at BobAlex_63. Another Moment with Bob brought to you by your friends at Offshore Drilling. Bob gets pissed off. So does Mike. You know, after reading some Bob Alexander or Chris Hedges or pick your radical pick your radical writer. You know what radical writers are? They're the ones who are screaming, "Wake up! Wake up! Wake up!" But after reading and kind of toying with the idea of emigrating from this country, it starts to seem like a rational thing to do. You know, I can't explain it. What I do, it's a little trick. Maybe you have your little mental tricks. You know, I'll like pull my consciousness back from everyday stuff and get all of a sudden a panoramic view, a broader picture of all the things that are happening right now that desperately need a working form of government, that desperately need men and women who are concerned about leadership, who are concerned about, I mean, leadership that is altruistic, that has in mind the planet, the people, the ability to live a life. And I see that idea is just disappearing. It's just disappearing. And I start to get scared because I start to imagine things crumbling. You know, not just structures crumbling, but concepts crumbling and ideas crumbling and hope crumbling. And, I don't like it.
Try to tell the truth and stand your ground.